You know, it's kind of weird how a place can look so beautiful, so perfect, and so damn peaceful, while someone right there is dying quietly, and nobody notices. Canyon Vista was like that. The sky was this huge burnt orange thing stretching forever. The kind of sky people drive hundreds of miles just to take pictures of. And yeah, they were taking pictures. A lot of them. But down on the scorching asphalt, stuffed inside the back of an old turquoise '89 pickup truck, there was this tiny girl, Mila Dawson, 7 years old. And honestly, she didn't look like she had many breaths left. Her hands were tied so tight behind her back. The rope had carved raw, angry marks across her wrists. Her mouth was sealed with silver duct tape. Pressed hard enough, her lips looked bruised underneath. And her legs. God, her legs. A thin line of dried blood ran down her right shin, maybe from scraping against something sharp when she was dragged. A little smear of red on dusty metal. Small. But when you're 7, everything hurts 10 times worse. She lay curled on her side in the truck bed, like a kid trying to stay warm. Even though the metal beneath her was so hot, it could have fried an egg. The truck had been sitting under the Utah sun God knows how long, and it felt like a damn oven. Every breath she took came out shaky, thin, like her lungs were giving up one little piece at a time. And outside? Man, outside was a whole different world. Tourists laughing, recording videos, taking selfies with the canyon like it was some perfect postcard backdrop. A couple in matching hiking boots arguing about which filter looked more dramatic. A guy with a drone telling his live stream, hold on, the sunset's about to hit crazy." Nobody looked at the old pickup. Why would they? It looked abandoned. Chipped paint, dented tailgate, one back tire half sunk into sand. It blended in like a forgotten prop from some desert movie. And Mila? She was hidden just enough that no one could see her unless they got real close. And nobody did. Her dark, dusty hair stuck to her forehead from the heat. Not playful kid sweat, but the kind your body makes when it's scared out of its mind. When your hands go cold, but your face burns. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. Not like thump, thump, but like a panicked flutter. The way a little bird beats its wings when it's trapped under something. She blinked slowly every few seconds, eyelids heavy, too heavy. Heat steals your energy. Fear steals your strength. And time steals everything else. At one point, she tried shifting, maybe to get comfortable, maybe to test the ropes. But the metal scorched her skin the second she moved. She winced. Her whole body tightened, and she froze, afraid even breathing too loud might bring him back. Who's him? Yeah, she knew exactly who. But that part comes later. For now, it was just her, a little girl trapped, a whole world around her pretending nothing was wrong. A tiny breeze carried the sound of flip-flops slapping pavement. A woman walked by, 6 feet from the truck bed. 6 feet. Mila heard her cheerful, carefree voice. "Babe, babe, look! Oh my God, the lighting's perfect! Take a picture of me!" Mila tried raising her head, just an inch, just enough to peek over the metal, but her vision blurred, and she sank back down with a muffled whimper you wouldn't hear unless your ear was right against her cheek. Then the worst part happened. She stopped struggling. Yeah, that moment when a kid finally gives up, it hits you like a punch. She wasn't trying to escape anymore. She was trying to survive another minute. Her breathing grew shallower. Her fingers twitched behind the ropes, not to untie them, just because her body was panicking. Her eyes drifted half-closed, then snapped open again, fighting sleep with the last bit of willpower she had. She wasn't being dramatic. She wasn't being a kid. She was fading, and no one noticed. Not the couple taking aesthetic canyon shots. Not the trucker wiping his sunglasses. Not the teenagers arguing about playlists. Not even the family with the stroller rolling right past the tailgate. It was like the universe had turned its head away. Heat, fear, silence, all pressing down on her little chest like a weight she couldn't lift. And for just one heartbeat-long second, you could see it in her eyes. She thought this was it. She thought she wasn't getting out of that truck alive. Her breath rattled. A tear slid down her temple. And Mila Dawson, 7 years old, started to let go right there, in the middle of Canyon Vista Rest Stop, in broad daylight, surrounded by people who never even looked in her direction. And then, just when everything seemed ready to stop, something happened. She heard something. A sound she didn't recognize at first. A sound deep, steady. Something that didn't belong to the wind, the tourists, or the cars. But that moment, that comes in the next part. Because this was the lowest point of her story. The bottom of the bottom. The place where hope goes to die. And somehow, she was still breathing. And you know, it's kinda crazy, because right when it looked like Mila had nothing left, like literally nothing, something tiny shifted. Not much, not enough to save her yet. Just enough to make her eyes move. She didn't lift her head. She couldn't. But she shifted her gaze, slow, tired, toward a tiny sliver of light sneaking through the metal slats of the truck bed, and through that little gap. So small a grown-up probably wouldn't even notice it. She saw movement. Not people, not cars, not the giant canyon everyone was obsessed with photographing. Dogs. 14 of them. At first, Mila didn't even understand what she was looking at. Her brain was fuzzy, overheated, kind of swimming in this dark fog. Everything felt like it was underwater. But then her eyes adjusted, and yeah, there they were. Lying under the long metal awning near the vending machines. Big shapes, thick fur, ears pointed, tails thumping lazily against the ground. 14 German shepherds, police canines, all resting in the shade, like some elite army taking a break before their next mission. She blinked, hard, like Wait, is this real? For a moment, she thought she might be hallucinating from the heat. Sure, she'd seen K9s before, but 14 in one place? That felt unreal, like something from the videos she watched on her mom's tablet. But then one rolled onto his side, yawning this big, slow yawn that showed every sharp tooth he had. Another flicked an ear. Another stretched his legs like he owned the whole damn state of Utah. Yeah, they were real. And something inside her, something tiny, something fading, shivered awake. You know that feeling when you're drowning, and suddenly your hand brushes something solid, a rope, the edge of a pool, someone's sleeve. It doesn't save you yet, but it reminds you you're still here. That's what it felt like. A tiny, fragile spark inside her chest pushed through the fear, the heat, the darkness. And then, like someone whispering in her ear, a memory slid into her mind. Her 6th birthday. Not a big party. Just her, mom, dad. A little cake with pink frosting. And her stuffed rabbit, Bunny Boo, sitting beside her like a VIP guest. She remembered her dad, tall, goofy, wearing that dumb birthday hat she made him wear, sitting on the floor next to her gifts, smiling that warm, tired dad smile. He handed her a small wrapped box. She tore the paper open, and inside was a tiny plastic German shepherd, wearing a little K9 vest. She remembered giggling, and her dad saying, "Hey, Mila Bug, listen. If you ever get scared one day, like really scared, you find one of these guys, okay? Real K9s can hear things grown-ups can't. They notice stuff we miss. They'll help you. Dogs are, well, kinda like superheroes with fur." She remembered laughing. "Daddy, that's silly. Dogs can't be heroes." And he winked. "Oh, sweetheart, you'd be surprised." That memory hit her so hard, it almost knocked the air out of her lungs. Like the universe reached into her chest and squeezed her heart just to remind her it was still beating. Her lips trembled beneath the duct tape. Her fingers twitched behind the rope. Her body still weak, terrified, burning up. But for the first time since she woke up in the truck, her mind wasn't empty anymore. She wasn't alone. Because right there, less than 100 feet away, were 14 living, breathing reminders of her dad's promise. 14 K9s who could hear things humans couldn't. 14 dogs trained to notice danger. 14 silent protectors lying in the shade, close enough to matter. And that did something to her. It wasn't dramatic. She didn't sit up. She didn't scream for help. She didn't suddenly find strength she didn't have. But one tiny tear rolled sideways down her temple, leaving a clean line through the dust on her skin. Not a tear of fear, not a tear of pain, a tear of hope. Faint, fragile, barely alive, but there. Her chest shook with a tiny breath, more like a hiccup than a real inhale, as her eyes locked on the K9s. One of them, a huge one with darker fur, Brutus, though she didn't know his name yet, shifted and sniffed the air lazily, just doing dog stuff, totally unaware a child was staring at him like he was the last lifeboat on a sinking ship. And maybe that's exactly what he was. Mila swallowed, a tiny movement beneath the tape. Her pulse picked up. Her chest rose a little higher. Because she still couldn't scream. She still couldn't run. She still couldn't untie herself. But she had one thing she didn't have a minute ago. A target. A direction. A possibility. 14 of them, actually. 14 dogs her dad believed in. 14 dogs trained to hear what the world ignored. 14 dogs that maybe could save her. And in that moment, lying there on the melting metal of that pickup truck, Mila Dawson did something she hadn't done since she woke up in terror hours earlier. She hoped, just a little. But sometimes, a little hope is all a kid needs to keep fighting. It didn't fix anything, but it did push Mila towards something she hadn't dared try before, something she wasn't even sure she could do. Because now, she knew where the dogs were. She knew they existed. She knew they were there. And when you're that desperate, even the smallest chance feels like a lifeline. So she tried to move. Not a big jump, nothing dramatic. She wasn't some movie hero, just her leg, her right leg, the one that hurt the most, the one with dried blood glued to her skin like sand stuck to an open wound. She pulled a tiny breath through her nose, squeezed her eyes shut, and dragged her heel inward. It felt like slicing a knife across her skin. She almost passed out. But she didn't stop. She tried again. Slower this time. So slow it barely counted as movement. The rope around her wrists bit deeper into her skin. But she kept her focus on her heel, inch by inch, just enough to tap the metal wall of the truck bed. Just one tap. That's all she needed. One. But her foot slipped. Her leg spasmed. Pain shot up her calf like lightning. And this is the part that breaks your heart. She apologized. Not out loud. She couldn't. But in her mind, she whispered this tiny, fragile, sorry. Like she felt guilty for not being strong enough. She was 7. 7. And she was apologizing for being in pain. But then, she tried again. Her heel lifted a little more, a little more. And then, tuck. A tiny, almost imaginary click against the metal. She froze. Did that even make a sound? Was it loud enough? Too quiet? Did she hit the wrong spot? She had no idea. But she tried again. Tuck. This one hurt even more. The dried blood cracked. Her jaw clenched until it shook. The pain was so sharp she almost screamed through the tape. But she kept going. Tuck. Tuck. Barely louder than a bug hitting a window. A gust of Utah wind rushed over the truck, hot, dry, heavy, swallowing her tiny sounds instantly. Her hope wavered, like, what if this is pointless? What if I'm doing this for nothing? Her head dropped sideways onto the metal, exhausted. And that's when it happened. A shape shifted under the shade. Not much, just a nudge. But she saw it through the tiny gap. Then she saw an ear. A big, pointed German shepherd ear. Rising. Brutus. She didn't know his name, but it didn't matter. He was the oldest dog in the Delta K9 unit. A veteran. A survivor of wildfires. Missing hiker searches. A collapsing mine rescue. And more drug busts than most officers. And something impossibly small had reached him. His muscles tightened. His breath stilled. His ear twitched once, twice, like a radar recalibrating. Then he lifted his head fully. No growl, no bark, just awareness. Like, hold on, something's off. He sniffed the air, eyes narrowing, body still as stone. Mila didn't dare blink. Then Brutus did something that changed everything. He stood up. A slow, steady rise. The kind dogs do only when something important hits their senses. And instantly, like someone flipped an invisible switch, another K9 looked up. Then another. Then another. 14 dogs. 14 sets of ears snapping forward. 14 bodies going rigid, focused on something no human in the rest stop noticed. It looked unreal, like a synchronized reaction Mother Nature herself choreographed. One moment they lounged in the shade. The next, they looked like a tactical team seconds from deployment. Brutus stepped forward. Then again, his nose lifted, his eyes sharpened. He wasn't guessing. He wasn't confused. He had heard something tiny, something impossible, something only a trained K9 could detect. Inside the truck bed, Mila couldn't fully understand what she was seeing. Just shadows shifting, dogs rising, heads turning. But her heart, her little heart, dared to beat harder. Because maybe, just maybe, they heard her. Brutus inhaled a slow breath, then turned, deliberate, focused, toward the old turquoise pickup. He stared straight at it, hard, like he could see through metal. Mila's lips trembled beneath the tape. She didn't smile. Not yet. But the fear in her eyes shifted into something fragile, flickering. Hope. Real hope this time. Because if even one dog sensed something, the others would follow. And if the dogs followed, someone would notice. And if someone noticed, maybe this nightmare wouldn't end the way she feared. Maybe she wasn't going to die in that truck. Maybe, just maybe, she was about to be found. Before we go on, let me ask you this. If you had heard a tiny sound like that, just a couple soft taps, would you have turned your head? 1. Yes. No 5. Honestly, I'm not sure. 6. It depends on the vibe. And the thing is, once Brutus locked onto that old turquoise pickup truck, everything changed in like half a breath. 1 second the rest stop was just noise, heat, people minding their own business. The next second, the whole world snapped. Brutus didn't bark, didn't growl, didn't look at the other dogs. He just moved. One solid step forward, shoulders tight, tail stiff, eyes locked in this laser-focused squint that almost didn't look real. And if you know anything about K9s, you know the moment the lead dog reacts, the pack reacts too. Instinct, training, something deeper, like electricity passing through all of them at once. So yeah, the second Brutus shifted, the other 13 followed. Not slowly, not cautiously, but like, boom, full-on activation. 14 German shepherds rose from the shade in perfect sync. 14 heads turned. 14 ears snapped forward. 14 chests expanded like a wave lifting off the ground. And then they ran. Not jogged, not trotted. Ran. Exploded. Like someone fired a starting gun and forgot to tell the humans about it. They blasted out from under the metal awning, tearing across the parking lot so fast, gravel kicked up behind them like tiny dust storms. And since nobody expects 14 police dogs to sprint through a rest stop at 3:23 p.m. on a random summer day, chaos erupted instantly. A woman screamed and dropped her iced latte. The cup hit pavement. Splat. Cold liquid splashing up her legs. A dad yanked his toddler close. 2 vloggers shouted, "Dude! Dude! What is happening right now?" Someone's baseball cap flew off in the wind of the dogs passing. A bag of chips exploded off a picnic table. Pop, scattering crumbs everywhere. The metal awning rattled so hard it sounded like thunder rolling off the canyon walls. And in the middle of it all, one voice cut through like a blade. "Brutus! Hold! Hold!" Officer Caleb Monroe. Tall, lean, sunburned from too many patrol shifts. A guy who never raised his voice at the Delta unit, because he never had to. But today, he sprinted after them, boots hammering asphalt. "Brutus! Delta! Hold! Hold position!" But the dogs didn't even flick an ear. They were gone, mentally, physically, locked onto something the humans couldn't sense. For the first time in Caleb's entire career, his dogs weren't listening. He shouted again, "Brutus, come, now!" Nothing. 14 furry missiles sliced through the lot toward one target. Meanwhile, in the truck bed, Mila felt the vibrations first. Paws pounding pavement, bodies accelerating. Her eyes fluttered open, confused, scared, not sure if this was good or very, very bad. Then the sound hit, the deep, thunderous rhythm of 14 dogs charging toward her. Her heart jumped, not just from fear, but shock, disbelief. Like her brain couldn't process that the thing she prayed for might actually be happening. Inside the truck, her tiny fingers curled into fists. Outside. The dogs closed in. Brutus reached the pickup first. The way he stopped, yeah, it felt cinematic. His claws scraped the pavement. He planted his paws, shifted his weight, and jumped. One clean, perfect leap. Up, over the tailgate, landing inside the truck bed beside her. He didn't bark, didn't lunge, didn't freak out. He just stared, eyes narrowed, head tilted, ears locked forward. And in that exact moment, Brutus understood everything. The rope, the tape, the bruises, the trembling breaths, the way her body curled in like a wounded fox hiding from predators. His entire posture shifted, shoulders tense, chest lowered, body angled just slightly in front of her, like he was already shielding her. Behind him, the other 13 dogs formed a half circle around the truck. Paws planted, bodies steady, jaws tight. A living wall. A barrier between Mila and everything else. And the tourists? Silent. Completely silent. Like someone hit pause on the whole world. Officer Caleb finally reached them. Chest heaving. Face twisted between panic and confusion. What the... Brutus? Buddy? Talk to me, what are you doing? But Brutus didn't even look at him. His eyes stayed locked on Mila. Then, very slowly, he stepped once toward her. Just one step, like he was saying, "Hey, kid, I see you now. You're not alone anymore." Caleb climbed onto the tailgate, breath shaking. Oh my God. Is there a child in there? But Brutus blocked him. Not aggressively, just firmly enough to say, "Back up. Let me check her first." And that was where everything truly began. Because this wasn't just instinct. This was the beginning of a rescue nobody expected. The moment 14 dogs broke every rule in the book. Because one tiny girl made a sound no human ear could ever hear. Brutus planted himself in front of Mila like that. Solid, unshakable, almost daring anyone to try and touch her. And that's when the humans finally understood something was seriously wrong. You could see it hit them all at once, like a wave rushing straight through their minds. Officer Caleb's face shifted from confusion to shock, to something very close to fear. He raised both hands slowly, palms open, like he was approaching a wild, injured animal. "Easy, girl. Hey, you're okay. We're not gonna hurt you." But Mila didn't react. Not with relief. Not with recognition. Not with anything. She stayed curled up exactly where she was, eyes wide, breathing tight and shallow, like her body had one mission left: stay small. Caleb stepped carefully onto the truck bed. Metal creaked. Mila flinched like someone had swung at her. Brutus growled, low, warning, protective. Not at Caleb exactly, but at the sound, the movement, the whole idea of someone moving too fast toward her. Caleb froze. "All right, All right. Got it. Then softly, Brutus, buddy. I need to see her. Brutus didn't back away, but he shifted, just enough to give Caleb access to the duct tape across Mila's mouth. And let me tell you something. Peeling duct tape off the face of a terrified child is one of those moments where time slows down. Not because it takes long, but because everyone holds their breath, wondering what happens next. Caleb pinched the edge gently. Sweetheart, this is gonna pull a little, okay? I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. He peeled it back slower than you'd peel a sticker off a new toy, trying not to hurt her. Mila's lips trembled, her chin shook, her eyes squeezed shut, bracing for pain even though he was being careful. Finally, the tape came off with a soft ripping sound. But Mila didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't speak. Just a tiny, silent exhale that barely lifted her shoulders. Caleb leaned in a little. Hey, sweetheart, can you talk? What's your name? Did someone hurt you? Nothing. Her mouth opened, just barely, enough to show the raw skin around her lips, but no sound came out. She tried again, still nothing, and you could see it, right in her eyes. She wanted to speak, desperately, like the words were piled up in her throat, banging on the door, begging to get out. But the door wouldn't budge. Caleb swallowed, voice tight as he looked at the officers. She's mute from shock. Vocal cords are locked. Trauma response. Mila didn't know what any of that meant. All she knew was that she couldn't talk, couldn't ask for help, couldn't explain, couldn't even whisper, please. And that terrified her more than anything. Every time a human hand reached toward her, her whole body jerked, legs tucked closer, shoulders locked tight, bracing for something awful. But then, something soft brushed her knee. Brutus. He lowered himself beside her. Slow, careful, gentle in a way the world had not been to her today. He nudged his head under her bound hands, offering her a choice. Touch me if you want. I'm not going anywhere. Mila's fingers twitched. Then, they sank lightly into the fur at his neck. And that tiny touch broke something loose inside her. Not her voice, not yet, but her tears. The first sob wasn't even a sob, just her breath catching. The second was sharper, a tiny gasp she didn't mean to make. And then it all hit, 6 hours of terror, 6 hours of silence, 6 hours of pain, heat, fear, loneliness. Her small body shook as everything poured out, not loud, not dramatic, but soft, strangled whimpers in broken little waves. Brutus didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't look away. He pressed his warm forehead against her knee and stayed there, solid, steady, grounding her like nothing else could. And it worked. Her breathing slowed, her shoulders eased. The fear in her eyes softened, not gone but dimmed. Caleb wiped his face, pretending it was sweat. "Good boy, Brutus. You're doing perfect, buddy." Another officer whispered, "She trusts him. Only him." And yeah, she did. Every time a human leaned in, she shrank. But every time Brutus shifted, she relaxed, like her soul recognized something safe. Like her dad once said, "Dogs hear things people don't. And sometimes they understand things people never will." Mila didn't talk that day. Not yet. But she didn't need words for Brutus to understand. Her tears were enough. Her trembling hands were enough. Her tiny fingers gripping his fur were enough. Sometimes, rescue doesn't start with a scream. Sometimes it starts with a dog lying down beside a broken child and saying, without saying, "I'm here now, and nobody's hurting you again." Right when Mila started crying into Brutus's fur, finally letting some of that terror leak out, something shifted again. Not inside the truck this time. Not in her. Out there. In the air. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but the energy changed. Like the desert itself stopped breathing. 1 second, everything was noise, confusion, officers scrambling to understand what the hell was happening. The next, it went still. Really still. Unnaturally still. Brutus lifted his head first. Slow, sharp, like someone flipped a switch at the base of his spine. Then a second dog froze. Then a third. Then all 14, every single one, went statue still at the exact same moment. Their ears snapped west like needles on a compass. And if you've ever seen trained K9s do that in sync, yeah, it sends a cold wave right through your bones. Because they don't react like that unless something serious is happening. Something alive. Something moving. Something wrong. Caleb noticed instantly. "Whoa, Delta, what do you got?" The dogs didn't bark, didn't growl, didn't twitch. They stared, unblinking, at the red rock ridge west of the rest stop. The ridge wasn't far, maybe a football field away, but jagged boulders and scrub brush made it almost impossible to see anything beyond the first line of rock. Yet the dogs stared like they could see straight through it. Caleb nodded to 2 officers. "Fan out. Something's over there." They moved fast, sweeping the parking lot. And that's when Caleb saw it. Footprints. Not old. Not weather-worn. Fresh. The sand hadn't even settled back yet. "Hey, Monroe," an officer called. "These are, like, minutes old. Maybe less." Caleb jogged over, heart rising in his throat. Deep boot prints. Size 11. Maybe 12. Heavy steps. Uneven pacing. Like someone had been moving fast. Or circling. Then another shout. "Found something!" A chunk of fabric. Dark brown, frayed, caught on a rock. Jacket material. Thick. Torn recently. Caleb picked it up. Turned it over. Still warm. Not from the sun. Warm from a body. Before he could speak, another officer called. "There's a bottle! Half empty!" Water, wedged between two rocks. Condensation still beating on the plastic. Not cold, not warm. That unsettling in-between that meant someone took a sip maybe 4 minutes ago. 5 max. Caleb exhaled, voice low. Someone's been watching. Someone's been here the whole damn time. The dogs growled, low, steady, chilling. Inside the truck, Mila reacted before her mind understood. Her body jerked upright as it could, eyes widening. Her fingers dug into Brutus's fur like she recognized the danger instantly. Caleb saw it. Mila. Hey, sweetheart. What's wrong? Her breath sped up, shoulders tight, eyes locked west, not looking at the tape, not the officers, not even Caleb. The ridge. A tremor ran through her. Her lips parted. But only a tiny squeak slipped out. And then, with a shaking hand, she lifted her arm. Slow, painful, determined. Her finger pointed straight toward the red rock ridge. Caleb followed her gaze. Mila, sweetheart, is someone out there? Her whole body shuddered, and she forced out a single word, barely audible, but sharp enough to freeze the blood in every adult nearby. He. She swallowed hard, chest heaving, then whispered the rest. He's watching me. Brutus stepped closer, body pressed against her, growl deepening. Not at her, at the ridge. Caleb turned to his officers, eyes wide. You heard her. Someone's still out there. The dogs stiffened again. Muscles coiled, tails raised, ears angled like they were triangulating a target. Then, a sudden bark, sharp, high, alert. Another dog joined. Then another. Then all 14 erupted. Not in chaos, but in a terrifyingly coordinated warning chorus. They weren't reacting to the past, or fear, or memory. They were reacting to a presence. Someone was still in those rocks. Someone who had been close. Too close. Caleb's stomach dropped. He turned to Mila. Mila, is he the one who put you in the truck? Her eyes filled with tears, and she nodded. A tiny broken nod that said more than any scream ever could. The kind of nod that meant he didn't leave. He didn't run. He's waiting. The kind of nod that meant the nightmare wasn't over. Not even close. Once Mila whispered that he was watching her. Everything inside that rest stop seemed to tighten. The air got heavier. The heat felt sharper. Even the dust hanging around the parking lot seemed to wait. It was the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. Like the world knows something bad before you do. The K-9s knew it too. All 14 stood in perfect tense formation, ears forward, bodies locked, growls rumbling like distant thunder. They weren't guessing anymore. They were preparing. Caleb wiped the sweat from his brow, though honestly, it wasn't just sweat. All right. Everyone stay alert. He's still close. He barely finished the sentence when a sound ripped through the air so violently it made everyone flinch. An engine. Not just any engine. A big one. Deep. Aggressive. Coming fast. Caleb spun toward the entrance. Oh, hell! A black Chevy Suburban came flying around the bend. Tires screeching. Dust exploding behind it like a sandstorm. It barreled straight into Canyon Vista like it was trying to mow through the entire rest stop. People screamed. A woman grabbed her kid. A suitcase burst open. A stroller toppled. A baby wailed. The SUV didn't slow, didn't hesitate, didn't care that dozens of people were right in its path. Caleb shouted, "Move! Get back! Move!" The vehicle fishtailed, narrowly missing a family that dove behind a picnic table. The wheels locked, screech, and the Suburban skidded sideways into a crooked stop, facing the old turquoise pickup where Mila sat frozen. No one moved. It felt like every atom in the air held its breath. Then, a click. Just the sound of a driver's door unlocking, but it hit like a gunshot. The door swung open, and he stepped out. Ethan Crowley. Tall, thin, but wiry in that dangerous way. Greasy blonde hair sticking to his forehead. Clothes rumpled like he'd been living in them. And those eyes. Cold, flat, empty. Except for that twisted glint that made your stomach drop. And the smile. God. That awful smile. The one Mila recognized instantly. She didn't breathe. Didn't blink. Her entire body went rigid like electricity shot through her bones. Then, with a choked gasp, she grabbed Brutus like he was the only thing keeping her alive. Her voice cracked free. Not a scream, not a word, just a shattered plea. Don't let him take me. Please, please. Her whole body shook. Hands curled in Brutus's fur. Tears falling faster than she could make sound. Brutus reacted instantly, stepping in front of her, growl transforming into something deep and furious. Caleb raised his weapon. "Crowley, show me your hands, now!" But Ethan didn't flinch, didn't blink. His eyes moved past the officers, past Caleb, straight to the truck bed, straight to Mila. His smile widened. "You've got something that belongs to me." Brutus barked. One explosive, violent sound, shaking the air. Caleb stepped forward. "She's not yours, Crowley. This ends now." Ethan didn't look at him. Not once. He only stared at Mila, face twisted with something sickening and hungry. Then he said the words that made every officer grip their weapon tighter. "Point all the guns you want. She's coming with me. Time 1200 mems." Mila's breath stuttered, shoulders collapsing inward, lips trembling as if she wished she could vanish into Brutus's fur. Brutus lunged halfway over the tailgate, teeth bared, rage rolling through him like thunder. 3 more K9s surged forward, barking, loud enough to shake the air. And still, Ethan took one step closer. Caleb bellowed, "Don't move!" Ethan didn't care. He raised his hands, not in surrender, but like he was reaching for something. Everyone held their breath. Mila whispered, through tears barely audible, "Please, don't let him. Please don't let him take me." Brutus pressed his body against her, shielding her completely, growling so fiercely the entire truck vibrated beneath them. Ethan smirked, like he enjoyed her fear, like he fed on it. And suddenly, the parking lot didn't feel like a rest stop. It felt like a trap, a battlefield, a place where something terrible was about to happen. And everyone, every officer, every tourist, every dog, knew it. If you were standing there, seeing that black SUV skid in, that man stepping out, what would your gut say? A. Danger. Run. B. Protect the kids. C. Call for backup. 1. Or honestly, freeze. Tell me which one feels most like you. Ethan took that first step forward. Yeah, that was it. The line snapped. Whatever invisible thread had been holding the situation together. Gone. Completely gone. Because something in his eyes changed. Not anger, not panic. Something worse. A decision. You could see it happen. Like he flipped a switch inside himself. And then he moved. Fast. Faster than anyone expected. Faster than any normal person should have been able to move. He lunged toward the back of the pickup truck, straight at Mila. No hesitation. No fear. No care about the dogs. Just this laser-focused sprint. Like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Someone screamed. Caleb shouted, "Stop! Stop right there!" 4 officers reached for their weapons, but they were already too slow. Ethan's boots hammered the pavement, dust swirling behind him like smoke. His eyes locked onto Mila, with this sick, hungry focus like he'd been waiting hours for her to be vulnerable enough to grab. And Mila? Her whole body froze. She pressed back into the truck bed, fingers clawing into the metal. Her mouth opened in a silent scream. Nothing came out. Just terror. But she wasn't alone. Not for a single heartbeat. Because the moment Ethan launched forward, Brutus moved first. He didn't bark, didn't pause, didn't wait for permission. He became a missile, a living, breathing bullet of fur and muscle. He exploded out of the truck bed. So fast, Caleb gasped aloud. Brutus hit Ethan's arm with the kind of impact that comes from 9 years of training and a heart full of fire. A full-body slam. Ethan's arm buckled, sideways, like someone had kicked it in the wrong direction. He stumbled, surprised, but not down. Not yet. Then the rest of Delta Unit hit. 3 K9s locked onto his legs, 1 on each calf, 1 at his thigh, pulling, anchoring, dragging, not tearing, not frantic. These were professional takedowns, precise, coordinated, surgical. 2 more dogs blocked the path to Mila, shoulder to shoulder, a wall of steel and teeth. Another K9, the youngest, launched himself onto the truck bed, and stood between Mila and the world, chest forward, stance wide, ready to die for her if he had to. Ethan fought back, hard. He twisted violently, freeing one leg for half a second. His elbow slammed backward, catching one dog in the shoulder. Not enough to injure, but enough to break the rhythm. And in that tiny gap, that split-second opening, Ethan yanked something from his belt. A flash of metal. A blade, long, thin, wickedly sharp. Caleb shouted, "Knife! Knife!" Ethan slashed down, aiming for the K9 gripping his leg. But Delta Unit didn't back off. They rotated, not randomly, but perfectly, like gears in a machine. Every dog shifted, centimeters, not inches, and the blade sliced nothing but air. Ethan swung again, upward this time, toward Brutus. And that was a mistake. Brutus ducked under the blade, teeth flashing, and latched onto Ethan's sleeve. Not his arm, the sleeve. One controlled jerk, ripping the knife off its target. Another dog struck behind Ethan's knee. Another hit his shoulder. And finally, Ethan Crowley lost his balance. He pitched forward, arms flailing. The blade slipped from his hand. Time 800 palms. He hit the ground face first, hard. But Delta Unit wasn't done. They didn't maul. They didn't lose control. They pinned him. One dog on each arm, one across his back, two on his legs. Total immobilization. Brutus let out a sound. Not a bark, not a growl, something deeper, like a roar trapped inside a dog's chest. It shook the air. It shook the rocks. It shook Ethan. The blade clattered uselessly beside his hand. Brutus stepped on it, pushing it farther away. Ethan groaned into the dust, struggling uselessly against the living wall pinning him down. Caleb sprinted forward, adrenaline surging. "Get his hands! Cuff him! Now!" Officers slammed onto Ethan's arms, wrenching them behind his back, while the dogs held his weight down. Ethan tried one last time, forcing out a guttural, furious scream. But Brutus leaned in, growling so deep it vibrated in every rib around him. Ethan froze. Caleb snapped the cuffs on. "Ethan Crowley, you're done." The dogs stepped back, slow, controlled, forming a wall between him and Mila. And Mila? She stared down at him, trembling, gripping the young K9's fur. But this time, she wasn't frozen. She was breathing. She was alive. And she knew. The dogs had saved her again. The knife hit the asphalt, and Ethan finally went down under the combined force of Delta Unit and 3 officers. You'd think the danger was over. But no. The real weight of what just happened didn't hit anyone until the next few seconds. Because the moment Ethan's face hit that scorching 47-degree pavement, hot enough to burn skin on contact, everything got real in a way that slammed into your chest. Caleb dropped onto him immediately, knee driving into Ethan's upper back, one hand locking onto his wrist with that brutal, desperate strength that only comes from pure adrenaline. "Crowley, don't move! Don't you dare move again!" Ethan squirmed, coughing, dust filling his mouth. He tried to twist, to roll, to break free. But Caleb shoved him flat, pinning him like a steel beam. The asphalt sizzled under Ethan's cheek, literally sizzled. You could hear the faint crackle as the heat transferred to his skin. He winced, muttered a guttural growl, tried to lift his head. Caleb forced it back down. "Stay down! You hear me? Stay down!" Another officer moved in, fast, yanking Ethan's other arm back. Zip, click. The cuffs locked, sharp, final, cutting through the chaos like a gunshot. And honestly, it felt like the entire rest stop exhaled for the first time in minutes. Except Ethan. He wasn't done. Not even close. Pinned face first on burning pavement, hands cuffed, blood running from a scrape across his jaw. He still turned toward Mila, not with his body, he couldn't move, but with his eyes. Cold, black, smiling, smiling. Mila recoiled instantly, pressing into the young K9 beside her. Her breath hitched, like someone had ripped the air from her lungs. She shook her head over and over, silently begging him not to look at her. Caleb saw it and snapped. "Hey, you look at me, not her!" But Ethan didn't. He twisted his neck just enough to see the truck bed, lips curling into that broken, twisted grin. Then he spoke. "You think—" He coughed, dust choking him, then forced the rest out. "You think you saved the only one?" Caleb froze. "What the hell does that mean?" Ethan laughed, a dry, rasping, broken chuckle. "You heard me." Delta Unit reacted instantly, not barking, not lunging. They growled, a synchronized, bone-deep rumble rolling across the parking lot like thunder dragging steel chains. It wasn't noise. It wasn't chaos. It was understanding. The dogs knew. They felt it. They understood that Ethan wasn't lying. Or at least, he believed he wasn't. 14 bodies stiffened. 14 tails rose. 14 sets of lips pulled back just enough to show teeth. Not to attack. To warn. "We heard you. We understand you. And if you try anything else, you're done." Tourists backed away instinctively. A kid whispered, "Mom, the dogs are mad." Even grown men stepped back, suddenly very small in front of 14 furious German shepherds. Caleb grabbed Ethan's collar, jerking him upright enough to force eye contact. "Explain that. Right now. Explain what you mean." Ethan wheezed a breath, then smirked. "You can't save them. All." Caleb shoved him back down. "Don't talk in riddles. How many? Where?" Ethan laughed again, uglier this time. "I don't owe you anything." The K9s responded with a rising wave of growls. Brutus, still standing guard in front of Mila, held the deepest one. This wasn't anger. This was promise. Mila clung to his fur so tightly, her knuckles turned white. Caleb lost the last shred of patience. "You're going to answer, and you're going to answer now." Ethan turned his head slightly, enough to flash a grin filled with dust and spite. "Or what? You'll sick the dogs on me?" Caleb leaned in. "No, they'll act on their own." And judging by the way Delta Unit's growl deepened at that exact second, It wasn't an empty threat. Ethan went silent. Not from fear, no. The man didn't look scared of anything, but from calculation. Something in him started moving, cold gears turning behind those dead eyes. Finally. "You're too late." Caleb's chest tightened. His grip turned white-knuckle. "Too late for what?" Ethan didn't answer, but his grin said enough. Delta Unit answered for him, growling so powerfully the truck bed vibrated under Mila's trembling legs. Officers exchanged panicked glances. There was no relief, no triumph, no victory. Only dread. Because justice wasn't clean today. It wasn't simple. It wasn't even victory. It was courage. Raw, burning courage, barely holding chaos back. And the dogs? Yeah. They knew the truth long before the humans did. This wasn't the end, not even close. Even after Ethan spat out that sick little line. "You think you saved the only one?" Nobody truly understood the weight of it. Not yet. It just hung there, floating in the air like a rattlesnake's warning you don't fully hear until it's already too late. But the dogs. Yeah. Delta Unit already knew something bigger was hiding behind his words. Because even after Ethan was cuffed, pinned, dragged away from the truck, the K9s didn't relax. Not one. They didn't pant, didn't seek praise, didn't even look at Ethan anymore. They all turned back to the ridge. 14 heads, 14 bodies stiff as steel, eyes narrowed, ears tilted forward, as if Ethan's arrest wasn't the end of anything, but the beginning of something else. Caleb noticed it first. Okay, dogs don't do that unless they're tracking something real. He motioned sharply. "Grab flashlights. We're checking the ridge. Now." Brutus stayed with Mila. Of course he did. But the other 13? They surged forward like a silent wave. Not barking, not frantic, just driven. Caleb jogged behind them, heart thudding, dust kicking around his boots. The desert sun pressed against his neck like a branding iron. They reached the first layer of red rock. Giant boulders stacked like someone carved them with a knife the size of a car. Shadows stretched between them like cracks in the earth. One officer squinted. "Geez, it's dark back there." Caleb nodded. "Not dark enough to hide from a K9. And he was right. Because the moment they stepped deeper, the smell hit the dogs like a trigger. Not blood, not death. Something else. Something chemical, artificial, wrong. A young K9, Ranger, veered sharply left, nose twitching fast. He whined, scratched at the dirt, then shoved his head into a narrow gap between two rocks. "Ranger, easy." But Ranger wasn't listening. He pushed deeper, pawing, pulling, digging. Caleb crouched beside him. "What do you got, boy?" Then he saw it. A rope. 2 ropes. Small, child-sized, still tied at the ends, still looped, still shaped like wrists. Caleb's stomach dropped. Oh, God. But Ranger wasn't finished. He pulled something else out, gently, carefully. A backpack, pink, torn. Minnie Mouse. Half the smile scraped off. Caleb took it with shaking hands. Jesus, this is a kid's bag. Another K9 barked. One sharp alert sound. Over here! They rounded a rock formation, deeper into the ridge's shadow. That's when they found the next thing. A small plastic bottle. Bright colors. Cartoon label. At first glance, candy. But no. Melatonin gummies. Extra strength. Not for sleep. Not an accident. Caleb lifted it. These weren't for sleep. He drugged them. He drugged kids. The air got colder, even under the brutal Utah sun. They kept going. Every step heavier, every breath tighter, then a shout. "Monroe, you better get over here!" Caleb hurried around a bend and froze. A tent. Small, dirty, hidden behind a natural split in the rock. The flap left open, like someone ran or was planning to return. Inside, blankets, 2 juice boxes, a small shoe, a torn coloring book, an empty pill pouch. Caleb exhaled. Shaky. Broken. This wasn't improvisation. This wasn't panic. This wasn't random. This was a camp, a holding point, a transition hub, a system. One officer whispered, "Sir, this isn't a kidnapping." Caleb swallowed hard. "No, this is a route." He stepped back, looking at the layout, the path, the hidden corners. This place was used to move kids from Utah to Nevada. And suddenly, Ethan's words made sense. "You think you saved the only one?" Mila wasn't the first. She wasn't the only one. She was the one who got away. Because she tapped on metal, and 14 dogs heard her. Caleb rubbed his face, devastated. God, she wasn't just lucky. She was the only one who got a chance. "What do we do now?" an officer murmured. Caleb stared at the ridge, jaw set like stone. "Now, we find every kid who came through here, and we shut this whole thing down." Behind them, the K9s whined. Not fearful, but angry, determined, ready. And on the other side of the rocks, a little girl sat in the truck bed, tears drying on her cheeks, without knowing she had escaped a system, not a man. Without knowing she wasn't the target, she was the survivor. After everything they found behind the ridge, the ropes, the torn mini backpack, the tent hidden like a secret nobody was meant to see, it changed the entire energy of the rescue. It wasn't victory anymore. It wasn't even relief. It was realization. Heavy, sickening, that Mila hadn't escaped a bad man. She'd escaped a system built around hurting kids. So when they finally brought her to the rescue station an hour later, everyone hoped things would calm down. Just a little. just enough for her to breathe. But trauma doesn't work like that. The rescue station, just off the highway, was quiet. Soft lights, air conditioning humming, officers whispering instead of talking. They cleared a room just for Mila. Blankets, a bottle of water, a stuffed animal someone pulled from Lost and Found. But none of it mattered, because the moment someone new stepped inside, paramedic, officer, even a gentle-voiced female worker, Mila locked up. Not froze. Locked up. Her back stiffened, knees pulled to her chest, hands trembling like she was bracing for impact. No sound, no words, barely even breath. It was like her body still believed she was in that truck bed. Caleb tried speaking softly. "Hey, Mila. We're all here to help you, sweetheart. You're safe now." But the second he stepped closer, she flinched so hard she nearly rolled off the cot. It hit him, harder than any punch. He lifted both hands. Okay, no touching, no sudden moves. We'll stay back." It didn't help. She still couldn't look at him. But then, the door nudged open behind him. Quiet paws padded across the floor. Brutus. His tags jingled. Just once, barely a sound at all. Mila's head snapped toward him instantly. Not in fear, in recognition. Her shoulders loosened, breathing steadied, hands unclenched, and with the faintest voice Caleb had ever heard. Barely air, she whispered, "Brutus?" The dog trotted over, slow enough not to startle her, quick enough to show he'd been waiting by the door like a worried parent. He rested his head on her blanket-covered leg. Gentle. So gentle. Mila exhaled, long, shaky, touching his fur with both hands like she needed to confirm he was real. Then she leaned forward and wrapped her arms around his neck. Not a calm hug, not excitement, a survival hug, a desperate, breaking open, hold on so I don't fall apart kind of hug. Her face buried into his fur, fingers knotted in his collar, her whole body shaking, and she whispered, I only trust this dog." Caleb looked away. Fast. Not because he didn't care, because he cared too much. He blinked hard, jaw tightening, staring at the wall like he was studying a crack in the paint. The paramedic whispered, "Let her have him. It's grounding her." Brutus lay down beside her, his body curving protectively along the cot, shielding her from the world. Every time she shifted, even a little, he adjusted. If she shivered, he pressed closer. If she whimpered, he nudged her cheek softly. If she started pulling away into herself, he laid his paw gently on her leg. "You're not alone. Not anymore." Officers in the hallway slowed, watching the scene through the open door. None of them spoke. None dared to. Because something sacred was happening in that room. A child trying to put herself back together with the help of a dog who refused to leave her side. After a while, Mila's breathing shifted, Softer, steadier, not sleep, not fully awake. Something in between. The first moment of safety she'd felt in hours. Brutus didn't close his eyes. Not once. He lay there, awake, chest rising, ears flicking at every sound. Anyone who stepped too close? His head lifted, not aggressive, just protective, just enough to say, "Don't get too close. She's mine to guard right now." Caleb finally stepped inside the door, crouching, voice barely a whisper. "You did good, buddy. You saved her. More than once." Brutus didn't look at him, but his tail thumped once against the sheet. "A thank you. Yeah, I know. Don't interrupt. She needs me." Caleb smiled, painfully, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. "Take your time, Mila. Take all the time you need." Mila didn't answer. She didn't need to. She was safe. For the first time in hours, maybe longer, she was safe. Because Brutus wasn't going anywhere. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not until she could speak without shaking. Not until she believed she was free, even after everything. After the rescue. After the ridge. After Brutus refused to leave Mila's side. Nobody expected what happened later that night. People thought she'd rest. Maybe sleep. Maybe stop shaking long enough to drink some water. But healing doesn't follow what adults think should happen. Sometimes, healing shows up in the hands of a child holding a piece of folded paper like it's the most important thing she's ever carried. It was a little after 8 p.m. at the Cedar Ridge police station. The sun dipped behind the Utah hills, leaving a purple-orange glow that made the world look softer than it really was. Officers moved quietly, paperwork stacked, voices low. The whole building felt tired, like everyone was finally letting themselves breathe again. Caleb leaned against a counter, rubbing the back of his neck, sipping a coffee he didn't even want. His eyes were red, the kind of red he tried to blame on exhaustion. Nobody believed him. Brutus sat at his feet, tail thumping and then, eyes drifting toward the hallway every few seconds. Waiting. Because he knew she was somewhere in the building. Then, soft footsteps. Very soft. Caleb turned, and there she was. Mila. Wrapped in an oversized gray hoodie that swallowed her whole frame, sleeves hiding her hands, hair messy, cheeks still blotchy from tears. But her eyes, clearer now, tired, but clearer. And she was holding something, a folded sheet of paper, folded into thirds, held with both hands like it might disappear if she blinked. Caleb knelt immediately. "Hey, Mila, what's that you've got there, sweetheart?" She didn't speak, not yet. Her lips moved a little, like she was testing each breath before letting it out. Then she stepped forward, slow, cautious, and pressed the paper into Caleb's hands. Her fingers lingered, half a second, like she wasn't ready to let go. Caleb opened it. The paper crackled softly. Inside, written in shaky, uneven handwriting, 6 words. Tell the dogs, they saved me. Caleb didn't breathe, didn't blink. His throat tightened instantly, tight enough he had to look away before the emotion swallowed him whole. He wiped his cheek quickly, pretending it was nothing. Mila, this is beautiful. Mila looked down, twisting the sleeve of her hoodie, nervous in that way only traumatized kids can be. Then Brutus stood, not abruptly, not loudly, just steady. He walked to her, nudged her hand gently with his nose, like he understood every word on that paper. Maybe he did. Mila dropped to her knees, instantly, like her body didn't need her brain's permission. She wrapped her arms around Brutus's neck, not crying, not shaking, just holding on. Caleb swallowed, forcing himself to stand long enough to whisper, "You all might want to see this." And one by one, quiet paws clicking on tile, the rest of Delta Unit entered. 14 K9s, big, strong, trained German shepherds who had stared down danger for years. But now they stood in a perfect line, side by side, tails low, heads bowed slightly. Not like soldiers, like protectors, like brothers. Mila looked up and froze. Not from fear, from awe. These weren't just dogs. They were heroes, her heroes. She let go of Brutus, wiped her cheeks, and took one tiny step forward. Brutus moved with her, perfectly in sync, like a living shield. But she didn't hide. Not this time. She walked toward the line of K9s, breathing shaky but brave. One dog lowered its head closer. Another pressed its chest to the ground. A third wagged its tail once, soft as a whisper. Caleb held up the note. "She wrote something for you guys. Every one of you deserves to hear it." He took a breath, the kind you take when something important is about to come out. She said. His voice cracked. He tried again, softer. "Tell the dogs, they saved me." Silence. A deep, heavy, warm silence. And then, somehow, every K9 reacted in the exact same moment. Not barking, not howling, not moving. They just stood taller, straighter, ears up, chests lifted, as if those 6 words were the highest honor they had ever received. Brutus nudged Mila toward the center of the line. She reached out, hand trembling but steady, and touched one dog. Then another. Then another. 14 dogs. 14 heroes. 14 quiet giants standing in the golden glow of a Utah sunset, bowing their heads for a 7-year-old survivor. Mila whispered, not loud, not strong, but real. "Thank you." And even though she said it barely above a breath, every dog heard her. Every dog understood, and for the first time since her nightmare began, she wasn't afraid anymore. If you were standing there, watching her give that note to the K9s, what would hit you the hardest? A. The courage of a child. B. The loyalty of the dogs. C. The bond between them. 1. Or that 6 words can break an entire room in half. Tell me which one hits your heart the most.